Hey class users, and major updates just gone through on the weekend, so I'm here to step you through briefly. The first thing we do with any major update is clear your browser cache, so it eliminates a whole bunch of problems. First thing you'll obviously see is some color changes. That might look nice, but actually all clients are in green, all services, including triage, because that's considered part of a service, will be in orange. That makes it easy if you've got multiple things open to find which services you've been looking at, or a client if you need to dig them out. Okay, the first and most important thing we need to tell you about is when there's been a change to conflict check, and sure enough we've made it a little stronger. When we run a search, the most significant change is what's going on in this type column. So this is telling us about essentially what kind of person or organization they are. It's called the client category. The majority of your regular clients are now called full clients, and we now have something to distinguish non-clients, which are people that have just got information and referrals attached to them. I'll explain that in a moment in a bit more detail, but be aware also that we've now separated triage clients out. So if people are in as a triage, they're not a full client yet. And similarly, as always, you get workers and also the other parties that were always there as well. Let's look at this in a little bit more detail. Essentially, yeah, the full clients, the majority of results, but these are people with what we now call full services. So you do need to understand what a full service is. It's a service for the individual that is not only singularly an information or referral. Typically, you'll have records with just an information or referral if your center allows for, down here it explains it, saving of names and addresses on information and referrals in the intake process. Now a lot of you have turned that off, but you're still likely to come across the odd, what we call now non-client, which is only an information or referral from intake. So sometimes people now can find a duplicate across to the full client. It'll distinguish the ones that are non-clients from full clients. And you might be a duplicate, but you can now merge these records. That is, you can merge all clients, but you can also merge different client types. You'll have to change it from a non-client to a full client first, and I'll explain that in the documentation in more detail. Triage client is the other one that I've just explained, so from a triage list. Let's go back. There is a new search just for non-clients, if you should need to just look at that. For example, some of you might just want to deal with the non-clients and merge them back into clients or do some other means. But the main conflict check still will be via that conflict check mechanism where you'll get everything including all the additional parties, or through step 2 and 3 of intake. Alright, now there's a couple of other important changes. Search clients has been updated. You'll suddenly notice this. It's the same look as conflict check. So the system has been updated as well. It used to be search and sort. That is search above the line, but now it's filter below the line. We think that's a clearer way to teach that to new people. Search above the line first, and then with your results, you filter. So over here in clients, there's also an important new button called show all, because you might not know exactly what you want to look for to start with. For example, you might want just have a quick look at who you added, say yesterday, or between a date range, which you can do. To deal with that, we just click show all. It gives you all your clients. This is full clients, of course, not the other types of clients. Remember, that would be, you'll need to come back to conflict check to find those guys. But here we are, we've got everybody, and from here we can then sort of filter it down, or for example, the last service state, or things along those lines, where we can still build filter builder searches and things along here as well, by clicking on the various things that you should know from the more complex searching if you should need it. So search services has also been updated, only slightly though. We've got a couple more fields to add, and they are funding categories, which are already in there, office location and outreach location. So you can, as always, drag and drop these, what you do and don't need. The next issue is client record editing. So if we click on a client on the front page, and we can see that these name and a couple of the addresses and the information has actually been grayed out. This is a very deliberate thing that we now change things once they've already been saved from additional details tab. Yes, we know that's one more step, but what we're having with some glitches where people were saving over the top of each other because they could have things open in 2 different tabs, and this way it ensures there's only one place to change things once the service has been saved, and it's a much more robust way of managing what is essential information. It semi-locks it down. Alright, some big tools are going down as well. One of the big ones, if we click on Client Services window, is that we can now select a service and do a copy. Now the copy is a big tool. It copies a bunch of things, so I've just made a copy there. You can only do it from inside a client, so you can only copy from one client service into the same client. You can't copy across clients, and that is deliberate for security reasons. And once we've got it, we still need to go in and do the final save. You'll have some mandatory fields that you'll need to complete depending on your center, but the main one will be the open date, and that will be made mandatory. It should be, because we didn't want to copy the open date because you might be copying a service that's say 6 or 8 weeks old and running it for today. What we'll copy is all the additional parties. That's important. So if you're not using the same additional parties, make sure you delete them and start again. What is not copied is actions though. So the main things not copied: actions and open date. Okay, 2 more very important tools for administrators. Down in tools, we have client merge tool. You can now merge 2 clients, but please take real great care to make sure you actually have the right people. I have come across very amazing examples of the same quite obscure name living in the same street, for example, and you really want to make sure you're not accidentally merging into 2 different people. You will need the client numbers. So if I put some in, say C34 and C29, and then you'll choose which one stays the same and which one's the one that gets merged into. So in this case, this one will stay the same, and we can do a little find lookup and check to make sure that we've got the right person, and we can even click in and get them to pop up and check again we've got the right person. Let me get back out of there. Now, you can either download the PDFs right now to your hard drive, and that will give you the whole summary, but it actually also will download both PDFs of both clients while they're still individual and attach it to the documents of that final single service. So once we've got it, we just click on that and merge clients. The reason we have those PDFs is that if you're on the hopefully highly unusual scenario where you actually need to undo this, you'll have to do it manually, and you'll be able to look at it from that PDF of the client details. You'll need to have document management turned on in your center to see those. So do ask help desk if you need that turned on and it's not already. All right, another tool is bulk insert. People will be familiar with this. If you have been around back in Silsys days, you can put in a monthly record, and underneath the details tab, it's a grid. The majority of it actually is for referrals, and on the far right side is where you put informations. This might be a little bit unusual for people that haven't seen this before, but you'll get used to it. You'll need to put in a new monthly record, but they can either be facilitated or simple, so you have to divide them up. So in other words, 2 a month if you're doing lots of both services. You can add informations to either of these types. Now the other important one is this locked key. That is quite important. If it's locked, you can't actually edit the details in the grid. If it's unlocked, you can. Once you've finished though, lock it and then save it, and this stuff will then end up in your service reports with a caveat. As of right now, the 3rd of September, we're having some problems with that. That is on the report side. We know the issue and we'll have it fixed within about a week. In the meantime, these new services are not showing up in the reports. They are not far away though. All right, another one. There is a simpler delete process, so you can now delete clients and services. To delete a client, you definitely will need to delete all the services off it first. So make sure you really know what you're doing before you go ahead down that path. The next thing is actions, and in services over there in actions, there's been an overhaul of reminder and critical dates. It should be a lot more logical for you and a lot simpler. Things like the emails will be email out to people that need reminders should work better, as well as the calendar files that spit out. So don't be afraid if you're seeing slightly changed ways that certain actions work, but it should be fairly logical for you to work out, and we'll have good documentation on that. Another issue is when you look at the systems now, we've changed the theming for smartphones. Smartphones that have VPN access, that means remotely access class from outside the office. You need a VPN set up. You'll be able to now conflict check with a theme that's much more streamlined for quick conflict checking out on the road. So check that out for those people that need to use that one. Information and referral services can now be added to existing full clients. Of course, many of you don't do that at all, and you in fact have that turned off in intake. So when you save intakes and referrals, it will delete the identifiable information, so this change is not for you. All right, triage, there's some big changes in triage, and triage can now be added to existing clients. If you want it to be a proper service, you can change it in that. If you know it's just going to be an information and a referral, you can change it, say, to that. If it's an Information referral, you'll go to convert to a non-client, or if it's anything else, a full service, you'll go down the path of going to conflict check, and where you go to conflict check is where you locate your actual existing client and you can save it to the existing client. Fairly similar to step 3 of intake. All right, there are a whole bunch of new reports for administrators. No doubt the big one that everyone's been talking about is the new do-it-yourself reports. They are in the system, but we ask that you don't use them yet. They are coming soon. There's a couple more tests there that will need to happen, and we'll have something out within about a week or so. Better documentation, and when the testing has all been finished. There are some things coming into documentation about that as we speak. It's going to be pretty exciting, very similar to the Silsys query builder structure. There's a bunch of other reports. The referral reports are in, and a couple more accountability improvements for those who use it. The printout templates have also been improved, more intuitive as well. So when you're doing printing out services, clients, or any kind of reports, make sure you're choosing the right templates. And there's also been document management enhancements. You no longer have that 5 meg limit, so it's now been lifted up to 200 meg, and we're even going to push that higher soon if we have no problems. So there's been over 120 other more minor bug fixes and enhancements. Don't worry if you see a couple of changes here and there. We'll get it all in the documentation, and it'll be clear for you. Chris Bro signing out.